This is where the fun begins.
Clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose.
King Kong ain't got shit on me!
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the
Everybody
procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm!
Say my name.
And here we go.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Grab your snacks, get your popcorn ready. It's about to get realish. Today, I am joined by my esteemed co-hosts. First, the podfather himself, Derrick Myers, and then, of course, the one and only, the hottest of takes, all the way from Buffalo, my guy, Matt Tirado. How's it going, you guys?
Yeah, how you doing? How you doing, Chris? How you doing, Derrick? Both of you looking as handsome as ever. Very stylish.
Appreciate you. You too.
A little wolfed out right now. You don't gotta lie to me, but it's okay. We're gonna bounce back soon.
Hey man, I was just looking in the mirror today. I gotta go get a haircut. This life's just been lifing.
Yes, life has been lifing, but as always, it's only right that we carry on. Before we move on, though, I'm gonna make sure that redirect all of you guys to make sure you're following us and the platform. So OTS Media Co. on all social media platforms, OTS Media on YouTube. We want to make sure that every one of these uploads is getting sent directly to your phone so you could get notified, as well as give you guys the opportunity to let us know how you're feeling about this stuff, right? We want some audience input. We want to make the shows more tailored to what you guys want to hear. So looking forward to getting some more feedback there. But you could find me on Twitter at Negrong MMA, as well as on Instagram at Chris Negrong _. Derrick, where could they find you?
You can follow me at Derrick _OTS on all social media platforms.
Nice. And what about you, Matt?
Yes, sir. You can find me over on Instagram, Matt_T29.
Yes, sir. Who knows? Maybe one day he'll hop into threads too, but baby steps.
Hey,
we gotta slowly expose Matt to the internet world,
Oh, I'm on threads right now.
Oh,
are you?
Okay.
I'm on it, yeah.
You are. I did
Yeah.
see you on there. Okay, good. Yeah, it's fun as hell in there, man.
Yeah, I haven't fully made it to the dark side, but hey, you guys have been asking me to hop on Facebook for months now too. So who knows? Might be another year until I hop on threads.
I think it's only fair.
Sir.
All right,
man.
but with all that being said, we got a lot of things to do, so let's get right back into it. First, we're going to talk about some really important news going on in the world of film. Obviously, there's a lot going on. There was already a lot going on, and the movement is only getting even bigger. So really excited to talk about the SAG-AFTRA joining the strike and what it means for a lot of different anticipated films on the horizon. And of course, just the profession and what everyone is doing. So interested to hear you guys' thoughts on that. But right after that, we're going to get into our feature presentation, where we'll be discussing Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and whether or not it is the best sequel of all sequels. So that'll be an interesting debate to be had. But with all that being said, let's get to a more serious note. As I mentioned, for the second time in its history, SAG-AFTRA has joined in on the strike with the Writers Guild, and has ceased all productions. I know that there's been a lot of different people requesting exemptions so they could continue to, um, what's the word? So they can continue to promote their own films. But we'll see where that goes. How do you guys feel about this news? The fact that this is happening for the second time in history, and just the momentum it seems to be on the horizon right now.
Yeah. I just have one message. Just pay your fucking actors. Honestly, like I understand that's like a bare bones thing to say, but like it's the reality. I mean, there's no excuse why these multi-billion-dollar studios, cannot, pay crew members, actors, and the like, the money they deserve. All the hours, the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into the art of filmmaking that we've grown to appreciate over the years doing this podcast. And so to see actors especially financially struggling, having to take their own means of transportation to work, barely able to afford health insurance is just absurd to me. And all of these demand SAG-AFTRA let me see if I get the first presentation. Yeah, SAG-AFTRA has published recently. We're not out of the question. I mean, these are you know human rights, literally. I mean, you look at increased break times, increased compensation. So I think there's just no excuse on the part of the studios, and I think it's the right thing to do. I think moving forward, when or if these respective strikes conclude, I think we're going to see some huge changes in Hollywood moving forward, and it's definitely going to be for the better. So
Yeah, no, I think honestly it needed to happen because you see that the way that television and film are being broadcasted is completely different than when what the last even the last 5 years, but more so because of streaming took over probably within what the last 12 years or so. You see that there's updated things that need to be addressed, and streaming, is the biggest part of that. I mean, I understand the, you know, doing addressing the breaks and stuff like that, but payout is the majority reason, right? So like if you have these streaming sites and studios that are making money off of these film and TV projects that the actors aren't even making any type of residual pay. I don't think writers are making residual pay off of it either. There has to be a way to measure it, and like Netflix doesn't show. I'm only going to use Netflix right now because that's the biggest one we can discuss. But they don't discuss, and I don't think any streaming site really discusses their viewership per project, right? You see, you go onto the website and you see that it's ranked number 1 in the country or whatever, but we don't see what the like the quote unquote box office is. We don't see what their payout is, especially when you have a movie that's debuting on a site, right? Like that's the main reason. I know why a lot of actors, like Tom Cruise, for example, is fighting for this new Mission Impossible film to be released in theaters. Um, of course, you want that because of the movie theater experience and all the sound design and all that stuff that goes into a film, but it's also avoiding that, you know, that payout discrepancy, right? Like if it went straight to the streaming sites, they're not getting the same pay as they would you know in theaters and where you can measure it. So I think that's something that definitely has to be updated, man. I mean, I think there's no way that you can actually expect actors or writers to be taken advantage of this way when the pay is low. You're trying to integrate AI into the process as well, um, and cut the pay for background actors. You know what I'm saying? Like that's one of those things where this thing is going to get real slippery, and AI has to be regulated. I don't think we're in a space where it's regulated to say we can utilize it for XYZ, but everybody's still able to keep their jobs. And I think we're going to end up seeing this kind of strike take place across multiple industries anyway. I don't think this is just going to be with the writers and with the actors in Hollywood. I think we're going to see this across uh, uh, um, a lot of industries, like for example, for like delivery and stuff like that. So UPS and FedEx and all of them. Like I think we're going to end up seeing them go on strike at some point too, pretty soon. So yeah, it's got to be regulated, man. It's just got to be regulated. There's no way that you can expect these people to be okay with taking less, and you're getting exceedingly more.
For sure. And I think the biggest, most important point is just how, like you said, these are all things that are changed so much within the last couple of years compared to even when I was in film school, right? I
Right.
haven't been that far removed, right? But everything I
Yeah.
was taught about distribution windows then really no longer applies. Like you said, there's a lot of films that go straight into that second distribution window where there's no actual theater run. And then who knows as far as the sort of percentage breakdown deals they have with these different streaming services. They know those numbers, right? there's
Oh yeah,
there's
they
no
do.
way they don't know those numbers.
Yeah.
So that being public can also help in negotiations. But if all these things aren't written in stone, right, it doesn't matter how much of a cut they're getting directly from the streaming service if none of that is going to be going back to the people who actually were a part of the movie, right? So
Right. Right. Right.
um
Right.
it's really important that they're fighting for these things, and the fact that it kind of took this long, um I think it was like sort of in a collective awakening moment where everyone is sort of realizing, man, we're getting shafted here, from many
Yeah.
different angles. And I think something that's not even really considered too when we talk about this is the percentage they want to get of the actual tangible people that are watching these different films, right?
Right.
This is not even to speak of the underground market where people are
Oh
watching
yeah.
these movies and these things illegally, and of course none
Yeah.
of that is going to be getting back to these people at all. So
Right.
I think it's really important that they are able to get whatever they can from the actual market, right, the real market
Hmm.
that's out there.
Hmm.
Because like you said, it's only a matter of fair trade, right?
Yeah.
Um, I can only imagine how many billions at this point streaming services have made off of these different deals where, okay, you're done with the movie entirely. Thank you. We'll give you this full amount, and now it's ours forever. And from
Right.
that
Right.
point on, what they're able to sell from that is way more than I'm sure some of the companies that sold their films could have even imagined, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's time that the times caught up with the technology. And I think, honestly, within the next coming years, these debates are only going to continue to get crazier with the amount of things that are able to be done with CGI and things like that. I
Hmm.
can only imagine the restrictions being more visible, right? Because, like you said, if
Yeah.
there's a way people could take advantage and save some money on the back end, of course, it's the right thing to do, right? To try to save as much money as possible. But being unethical about it too is really grimy in a world where,
Yeah.
let's be real, these studios already are doing everything they can to make sure that they're doing shrewd business tactics to save a dime here. So, can only imagine what's going to continue to come of this.
For sure. And I mean, if you really think about it, like, and I'm not talking about like A-list celebrities. I'm talking about the other actors, right? That sometimes there's a lot of time in between projects for them. And the majority of the time they're able to actually make money is off of residual pay, right? So if you take away the ability to, or you lower that residual pay, you're messing with someone's livelihood. And you're going to see a lot of actors that you've seen in different projects. If this doesn't get resolved, you're going to end up seeing them you know out of work in terms of Hollywood, and either going trying to do more independent films and independent shows, or getting out of the industry altogether. It's not really like, and you know this as much as I do, Chris. Like the film industry is not as glamorous as people tend to think it is. Like the people, a lot there are really a lot of really nice people, but the ones that you meet that are in positions of power will take advantage of you every step of the way, every step of the way. And I think this is just this is a bigger aspect of that, of how Hollywood actually is. And I'm glad to see that a lot of things are starting to come to light. But for like Bob Iger, recently came out and said that what they're asking for is unreasonable. I don't see how it's unreasonable. I don't see how it's unreasonable to want to be paid for your work. That's the least you can do.
For sure.
And the,
And I think it's really important that there is a united front and there's a way that they can collectively get their voice out there. Because imagine, this doesn't only happen in filmmaking, this happens in every single industry, right? It's
Right,
about
right.
profit in this world of capitalism. And at the end of the day, if there's someone that's willing to do it for cheaper, that's who they will go to do it. We see
Yeah.
this in a lot of different sports. So the fact that they're able to come together and have this collective voice is great, right? It only spells for good things to come from this in the future. But I would hope, right? MMA, some other a couple different organizations will follow suit, right? And realize that the only way to really get these things addressed in any sort of way, if at all, right? Because it's not guaranteed that they're going to get what they're asking for, but the only way to get these issues talked about is to have a collective voice. So yeah, really hoping that, right, make them bleed, make them sweat, make them feel
Yeah.
the effects of what you're doing, so that they understand why it's so important and what you're asking for.
I am curious if we're going to see a precedent being set for visual effects artists as well. Sort of all these different
Mm-hmm.
positions in the studios as well, because I think even recently we've heard a lot of terrible stories about working conditions and how artists in general are vastly underpaid in spite of all the work they're doing in post production. Um, and so I think those definitely another group of people that I think sort of need to be represented at some point. But of course, right now the focus is, of course, on all the actors. But this is not about the Jessica Chastains or the Tom Hanks. This is just about everyday actors who are trying to make a living. And even if their role is 5 minutes long, at the end of the day, they're a human being who deserves to be paid accordingly. And I think everyone should and hopefully will agree to such a sentiment. So
Yeah.
I imagine good things will come of this. I think the studio's choosing to continue production, um, I think speaks to their um, immoralness, if that's even a word. Like even as recently, like Andor season 2 just shut down production because I believe actors and writer or and crew members on the actual set began protesting. I think we're gonna keep seeing more of that. A lot of movies and TV shows being pushed back. Um, but the last thing I wanted to mention too was I think a common idea would be to not support you know these movies coming out and TV shows coming out. It's actually quite the opposite. I think SAG I'm gonna keep it. SAG has just has outright said that watching these movies and watching these TV shows is inherently a good thing. The reason being is because studios can play the card of, oh, not enough people watched it, then we can go on and cancel it, and then therefore, millions, potentially, well, not millions, but thousands of individuals are without a job. And I think Derrick, you brought up point of viewership numbers. Those decisions are never provided to us. I mean, the most we're ever given is whether or not we see a huge dip in viewership. But again, whether they consider a success is so subjective. You know,
Yeah.
um, and it's just difficult, especially from a streaming standpoint, because like the way they generate profits is so different than this is a traditional movie. It's very easy to sort of see if a movie does really well in the opening box office weekend and do this amount. Streaming is all about racking in the viewers. If it's just the tiniest bit off to them, they'll outright cancel it. And I think that's just wrong. you know so I'm just hoping that studios don't get that idea. I just figured I'd throw a message out there just to keep supporting these movies, but don't do like active promotion, because then that's also helping the studios too. You're giving them clout. You know what I mean? It's better to let them keep wasting all the million, wasting millions of dollars. Going to be like, okay, oh shoot, like we don't have a lot of money to spare, but what money we can spare, give it to the very people that are helping us make these movies in the first place. So
Yeah. I think to be honest, I'm actually glad that they went on strike, because there's a lot of I think there were a lot of projects that were in production that I didn't want to see go through at this point. The biggest one I can think of right now is Deadpool 3. I hated the idea of them going through that movie through the writer's strike, because it meant that Ryan Reynolds wasn't going to be able to go off script and do ad libs in the film, which is the whole essence of Deadpool, right? Like he's supposed to be this, smart aleck type of character that really, can go off script and they can come right back onto it, right? So I wanted to see them do it the right way. So I'm glad that it's off right now, but I think that this is gonna be one of those things that we're not gonna see end anytime soon. I hope I hope you guys are prepared to watch some shows that you haven't seen before and just go back and watch those instead, because
Mhm.
we're not gonna see anything new for a long time. I don't think unless it's been unless it's on its way to release right now. I personally don't see this ending like maybe within the next six to 12 months. I could see it still going for another year or so. It's gonna be a minute before this thing ends.
I
Because you
also
have a
expect,
lot of guys that are prideful, you know. So
you know, I do expect, and honestly, so I think in the short term, I do expect production of films to cease. I do expect release dates to be shifted because of the uncertainty surrounding the end of the strike. I do, however, think that production is going to be mostly consistent for the wrong reason. And the simple reason is because studios try and be cost effective and they're going to try and cut corners. And I imagine that all of your popular TV, all of your favorite TV shows, all your anticipated films, I think their budgets are going to be reduced substantially. And so whatever crew members they somehow secure for these movies, I think they're just gonna keep doing what they're doing in spite of, being actively protested against. I think, studios, because they feel like they have to sort of pump out product, I think they're gonna try and push out as much content as they can, in that regard. Now the question is, will the quality
good
suffer?
luck.
Absolutely. And that's another thing too. Good luck. Because if you're gonna go down that route, which I 100% believe they will, you're proving everybody's point. You know what I mean? Like, Like
Yeah.
you're not listening and you're just going about things the wrong
Well,
way.
see, the one thing reason why I don't know if we're gonna see, because I mean there are some productions that will continue, like game shows.
Yeah.
Um, I think productions that consist about like that the content are about like learning, so like Animal Planet type of things. I think those productions will continue. Because I think they follow the guidelines of the strike or whatever. But
Mhm.
we're not, in terms of film and movies. If you're not a union member, like you're not getting onto these major studios to do these projects. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's where we're gonna see the shift for a lot of independent filmmakers. I think for the non-union writers, non-union actors, I think this is going to be a good time for them to shine. I think I said this before on here, but I I really believe this is going to be a big time for podcasts, because you're going to have networks that want to lease shows, because they're not going to be able to put out content like that. And I think this is going to actually be the time period, like with the last writer strike. um that's how reality TV was born. So I think that's what's going to work happen with this time period. I think we're going to see podcast production taken to another level, because networks they won't have any new shows. I think you're going to see a lot of more radio shows on TV, like the Breakfast Club and all that, like because now they're on BET, and I think another network as well. But I think we're going to see a lot more of that. When it's between that and game shows, where it's just going to be, I guess, their time to shine. So I guess, unless you don't want to watch reruns or old movies, prepare to watch Wheel of Fortune for a little while, because it's going to be a minute. It's gonna be a minute before this
Yeah.
thing ends, man. I don't see. I honestly don't see this ending anytime soon. It's gonna be a while.
Yeah. I think there are unfortunately a lot of celebrities who have these established relationships with studios. And I think so, with their influence and sort of all of their individual connections, they can probably jumpstart a ton of projects. And I think we're going to see a lot of Transformer situations where we're just going to start hearing of movies, or really in a last ditch attempt for studios to try and make a profit. They're just probably going to go into production without a studio, or without a script, which I don't even think they can do, actually, according to SAG, because they can't improvise. So that means they have to, like, I don't know. By the way, I'm not justifying it to put it
No.
out there. I'm just curious of like the different measures that studios will take. It's kind of interesting to think about.
But see, that's the whole thing about the union. If you are a part of the union, you are not allowed to do any of those things. Writers technically cannot write right now. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
that's true.
So it's like, that's why I'm saying this is gonna take a long time for anyone to see any new project. I mean, by the time we get to actually see Blade, Mahershala Ali might be a little older.
Probably like
You
65.
know, yeah. I don't know, man. I'm optimistic, but I'm cautiously optimistic. I think it's gonna take a long time for studios and streaming sites to say, okay, you know what, we were wrong, because they're not gonna admit that they were wrong. They might come up off of a little bit of what they were talking about before, at least in the next couple months, but for them to actually get everybody back on production, that's gonna be a minute, man.
Yeah. Money is a cruel bitch. Let's be real,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that's the reality of it. I'm sure
yeah,
the margins work out, right? And that's why in their minds it's like, well, we've been doing it this way, and in their head, I'm sure they've been given too much already. So the fact
yeah,
that they're asking for this is sort of brazen. Um, yeah, like I said, I hope other industries continue to follow suit, because this is happening every day, and it's not just
yeah.
filmmaking people. Trust.
Oh yeah. Hey, look, running backs, NFL.
Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion.
That's a
Mm-hmm.
whole different thing. But I think we're gonna end up seeing a strike with them. Like,
That'd be crazy.
that'd be
All the
wild.
running backs.
Yeah.
Shoot.
The only running back's gonna be Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson.
Put them in shotgun to the direct
Yeah.
snaps.
I'm not sure that'll be bad for the league. Hell, all
It
wide
wouldn't.
receiver spreads, right?
Yeah, yeah, it'd be chaotic.
Nuts. But I think that is a perfect time for us to move on to our featured presentation. But make no mistakes of whose side of this war we're on, right? We are
Mm-hmm.
for the people. Get your bread, please. And hopefully these real moments of change can lead to actual change. But with that being said, our second of the big trilogy. So, Matt, you said something before the show that I think it's important, right? That you just make your case for this off rip. We're not even going to discuss the film yet. So
Alrighty.
why don't you tell the people what you said, and why don't we decide whether or not you're wrong or not?
I said that so Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, is the best second movie of all trilogies ever.
And why is that, good sir? What is your defense?
Well, I think you have to consider what the purpose of this film was, right? I think from an objective standpoint, right? The Two Towers' main priority was to set up what is to come in Return of the King, right? And I think movies in general can really suffer from an excessive amount of exposition, dragging on for far too long, things of that nature. But what I found so riveting about the Two Towers compared to Fellowship of the Ring is that, in spite of there being multiple storylines, the one following Aragon, the one bit surrounding Gandalf, even the one with Frodo, and as well as Pippin and Merrin, I think all of their stories connected in a very meaningful way, and I think ultimately allowed these characters to go on their respective arcs, and obviously let us as an audience really connect with them on their journey. Um, And so I think that the movie just really excels at doing its job, which again is for the most part setting up a lot of the climactic battle with Saren, or you're looking at Frodo and Sam's task of destroying the ring. I just think many films who are faced with this task really can juggle all of these different things, and I think as a whole, at least from a pacing standpoint, I mean, in hindsight, I watched the extended cut, which is like 55 hours long. So, in situations like that, I'd be quick to forget a lot of scenes. Uh, I'm always bad at remembering characters' names, but I think for the most part, I remember a lot of characters' names. And I think that's just indicative of the quality of the movie, you know. And yeah, so that's sort of where I stand on the Two Towers.
That's
What I
I
feel like,
definitely
yeah,
I definitely agree with what you said about sort of the purpose of the film and how it served. But at the same time, there's just so many other options, right? So many other options to choose from. And I feel like that's where the argument becomes tough for me, right? Because I enjoyed the first movie. I definitely enjoyed the Two Towers more than the first movie. So I'm going to put that out there. I'm not shitting on the film at all. I think when we get to our star ratings, we'll see exactly how we feel about that. But um, I just feel like there is a case to be made for other films, even the trilogy we most recently did with Godfather. So if the debate can even start there, right? I can only imagine the other stuff that we could potentially bring up. Um, but I think it's important to note, right? This is the only trilogy, right? Of all trilogies, not just ones that we've covered, but of any trilogy to actually be listed in the top 100 of best films all time by the American Film Institute. So uh,
yeah.
greatness is among us, right? We're talking about a great trilogy. I'm not throwing shade, but a couple different names came to mind when you started the convo, for me at least.
Yeah, for me too. Godfather 2, uh The Matrix. Um I think there for me there are a lot of good oh actually Toy Story 2 was really good too. Um
How dare you
I'd have to
include Toy Story in this?
yeah. I
hey
did
man,
three is better, but
listen. I love animated films, so sue me.
man, that's all right.
I love them, man. And I think that if we were to have a discussion on the best sequels, I would say that honestly this was definitely better than the first one. Like the first one, I felt like I was suffering through it. Um,
Damn.
but I was watching the extended edition too, so it's like that was 4 hours, 4.5 hours long. It was just like, oh man.
That
But
is insane.
yeah, this one was really good, and I can say it was significantly better than the first one. So I think in that sense, as a sequel, it did its job. I'll just say that. I think it did its job. You're supposed
Yeah,
to be better than the first one.
Hmm.
So
yeah. Um, what I will say is maybe I'll toss in a little hot take before we get into the main course here. But yeah, I think the Godfather trilogy as a whole, upon reflecting on it, having watched it, I think is super overrated. I I'm gonna use my
is
favorite
this a
line from
joke?
fan. No, I mean that serious. I think it's super overrated. I, I'm gonna use my favorite quote from Family Guy, where what's it called? Where Peter talked about the Godfather. It insists upon itself. That's all I'm gonna say.
You're like a walking, talking bit at this point.
I
You know that?
yeah,
Like
man.
I
I
can't
just
even tell when you're in it anymore. Like it's just who you
me
are at this
either,
point.
man. Yeah. I mean, okay. We will have to have that discussion some other point because
We
that just
will
hurt
be
my
here
feelings.
for a while. We will be
Oh,
here
for
for a
sure.
while.
For sure. For sure.
But let's get on topic, right?
Yes, sir.
Let's get into the discussion of this film. What we liked, what we didn't like. I think early on, um, I liked how this film didn't waste any time, right? We were immediately thrown back into our same goal, right? We're making our way to Mordor, right? So as far as the first half of the film and the way everyone was reunited, I think it's only right that we talk about the scene where they were trying, of course, to find the hobbits, and they were constantly a day behind them. One of my favorite notes about those sequences actually, um, when they were filming that first part in the very first scene when Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are seen sort of running over the top of the mountain, you could see one of Gimli's shoes fall off, and that was actually like not planned at all. Like that just happened, and then they left it in. Um, but I just love how they kept on emphasizing how Gimli was all the way in the back, like struggling to make it, and just constantly being like, "Hey, we're actually made for sprinting, not for long distance running. You guys, wait up!" Those moments were hilarious to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I I will say though about that, I kind of found it annoying that he always caught up to them. Like for the pace that they were running, I found it annoying that he managed to always keep up every time they cut to a jump cut. Like every time we were fast forwarding through time or whatever, he was always there. So I like that annoyed me with that part because they were running
Way fast.
way faster, yeah, than he was. But that's probably that was my biggest note about that sequence.
yeah. I mean,
He kept pace. I didn't like that.
yeah, I do have a counter to that. I think you actually answered it in your response there, which is like with how fast they were moving, how fast they were moving, and how this scene itself was edited. It makes sense that he would naturally catch up. Because if you remember, there were multiple instances where Aragorn was placing his ear on the ground and obviously keeping track of the orcs as they were, continuously moving on. And you also have to remember too, where when the orcs are stopped for camp and obviously a huge battle occurred between all of them because they were trying to decide whether or not to eat the hobbits. It makes sense that they would naturally catch up at some point. So I feel like it makes sense in this thing because it'd be kind of weird if like Gimli just wasn't present, and then
I know.
they're in the middle of like a huge battle, and then he comes in out of nowhere. So I'd rather have it be that than you know what I mean. Well,
Because
it didn't
of
bother me
that,
too much, but it's fair to bring up though.
yeah, I mean, it's because of that. I've been like, I'll just put them on a horse. Like they just found horses, and that's how he was able to stay with them. That's my only critique about that part. It didn't feel realistic for the pace that they were running, because it's not like they were actually going to like, because the orcs were complaining that they weren't stopping. You know what I'm saying? Like, is that one moment where they did stop to make camp? That's when the battle began. And had they continued going, I don't even know if the elves would have caught them. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I was kind of debating on whether that was, I'm talking about realism in a fictional story. I get it, but that was the one thing that really kind of like irked me in that sequence is like,
I'm surprised you're so passionate about this. Like this is a Matt Torado take, with all due respect.
hey,
So
man,
the fact that he wasn't on your side, I'm like, I don't know. Derek might be tripping on this one. Like
yeah,
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but
possibly
no,
am, Matt.
no, that's fair. I mean, there are still like in every fantasy, there are still realistic elements, right? I mean, we
Yeah,
obviously
yeah, to
have,
keep it grounded.
yeah, exactly right, and
Yeah,
like obviously there are a few sort of like weird things that take place, how horses are randomly summoned, or to your
yeah,
point, how all like characters can trot these extremely long distances in a like short period of time. So I think it is fair to bring up. I just wasn't bothered too much by it. And I think what carries it is I. So what I will say is the last thing we're bringing up. Sorry, I don't want to keep dragging this part on. Is like it's invented multiple times, sort of how like Aragon mentions they're like 3 days ahead, or I think he said like they're 1 day ahead or 3 days ahead when I think it was Pippin who like dropped the elf pin on the ground. So it makes sense that they're gonna keep editing the scene, for it for like the movie to keep pace, basically. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I
Right.
probably went by faster than what it actually would be in real time. You know,
Yeah.
but I think yeah, the movie was awesome. I was gonna say it. Well, we'll get into that.
Yeah. So what other big moments? Obviously, the main event, right? The reason why we're here is the battle, and I think it's only important that that'll be sort of the last thing that we get to.
Yes.
But I'm the worst with names. I'll be frank with this. But the hobbits got split up, right? And I think a big part of the journey that I loved that they sort of highlighted on was Frodo and um Sam the what was it? Sam the, what did he call
Sam the
himself?
Wise.
Saying the wise.
Sam the Wise, uh, goaded for real. But their character development and obviously Frodo's battle with falling into the temptations of the ring. That was a question that Derrick posed to us last time. And I love the way that developed throughout this film too. So what did you think of that, Derrick?
Honestly, I like even watching this, it it showed me why my perspective on the last episode like still rang true for this one. I still would have like Sam to be the one to carry it because Sam like seemed to be the one that wasn't as tempted by the ring, right? He was even telling Frodo like, hey, he was trying to ground him at every turn they got. Even when Gollum came into play, which I honestly, and it might sound weird, Gollum is my favorite character
I fuck
in
with
this
Gollum,
film.
but he ain't my favorite, but
He's
he's
my
legit.
favorite. He's my favorite because he's so complex, right? He's a bipolar character that you see the different sides. You see Gollum, you see Smeagol, and I thought that you know the more that we got to see with him, and you saw how close he and Frodo started to become on their journey. Sam, you know, Sam was mean to Gollum for sure. He wasn't having it, and I think it's to me it's one of those things that Frodo seemed to be. Frodo seems naive, and I'm not sure that I really like Frodo, man. I something about him just doesn't. I don't rock with him too
I
much.
gotta step in here. I have to step in here. I think that this speaks more so to the what is it the trance that is the ring than Frodo being easily influenced. Like I feel like if it was
well,
Sam in that position, similar things would have happened, right? Over the course.
I would agree, but the reason why I don't is because the other people, I forgot his name, Bolomir, I think is his name, in the first
Mhm.
film.
Hmm.
Um, he wasn't even holding the ring, but it was just being in the presence of the ring that turned him insane, right? And you could see different characters take that likeness on. Even Gollum started to lose his mind the closer he got to that ring. But Sam was even keeled. Like he was there the entire time. He was Sam, and you
He
knew what
was
you
the
were
adult
getting.
in the room.
He was the adult in the room, yeah, and that's why like to me, I would have liked to see him be the ring bearer because he's the one that would have been like ready to fight when he needs to fight, but he's also not going to be deterred by anything. And that's what I like about him.
Mhm.
Frodo just seemed to be a little he seemed to be weaker, man. And to be honest, I would almost want to say like of all the hobbits that are on this journey, um he and Pippin are the weakest. He and Pippin are the weakest hobbits, and I don't know. I just Sam. I connected with Sam a lot more than the other ones, and I think that his dynamic with Gollum was amazing.
Mhm.
It was amazing because let's imagine he was carrying the ring. I think he would have had that same perspective. Like, I'm not trusting you. Frodo wanted to just seem like he was just too trusting. At every turn, he was too trusting. I didn't like that, man. I'm sorry. I can't rock with
He
that.
was way too faithful to the mission, right?
Yeah. But it was like almost whatever it took to get there. Like, that's cool, but even in that kind of perspective, you still have to have your boundaries. And I don't think he had his boundaries. Sam had his boundaries. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, man. I don't know. I can't rock with Frodo, bro.
That's the most we've seen him though sort of battle with this, right? And that's what I
Yeah.
really enjoyed about it. I think I don't know. I've haven't had a moment where I'm like, I don't know, this dude Frodo's making questionable decisions. Like I feel like even when he has made and had those moments, it's kind of like, oh well, at the end of the day, it is justified, right? Because we got to do what we got to do, right? So,
Yeah.
but I'm interested in that storyline for the third one as well. But
Yeah.
since we're on and on about our love for Gollum, I thought it would be really important for me to mention this. So I think it's no mistake that we really appreciated his role in this second film, even more so than the first. I
Mhm.
don't know if you guys noticed, right? But the quality, right, of what Gollum is in this film entirely took a huge step in the right direction. And the story behind that is super cool. So the actor, actually, Andy Serkis, um, he originally was pitched the role and it was sort of told to him that he was going to do everything across 3 weeks in New Zealand, but just audio capture, right? And Peter Jackson was actually like so impressed by his performance at the audition that he decided that throughout the entire film, from that moment forward, they'll motion cap him. So all the scenes where you actually see Gollum, he was actually there, present, right? Obviously not in Gollum costume or anything like that, but in motion capture the entire time. And I think that really added not just to the scenes of just him, but just having him physically be there, right, and navigating, moving around these different places. Like it added a lot of character, right, to Gollum and
Yes.
Schmeagol and all these different moments. Even when they were crossing sort of what was that area called, like the swamps,
Oh yeah. With the dead people
something
in
of
it,
the
right?
dead, right? The
I think it was the like it was that great battle, right?
mhm, that it
Yeah,
took
I forgot
place
the name of it.
there. And
Yeah.
then when he was saying to not look into the light because we saw how Frodo ended up being possessed and basically almost convinced you to kill yourself, right? Gave off
Yeah. Yeah.
very much so Bird Box vibes
Yeah.
off of that. But all of those scenes with Smeagol slash Gollum, I love how we even got like a 2 minute rant of them just going back and
Yes.
forth, sort of trying to win the argument, so to speak. And funny enough, a lot of the times I find myself rooting for Gollum, even when I know he's tripping and I know he's sort of being swayed by the ring like everyone else. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know, I kind of fuck with him more than a lot of these other people too. So maybe Frodo isn't the perfect protagonist that I'm portraying him to be.
Yeah. Nah, I think Andy Serkis to me is the GOAT with motion caption. Um because you see what he did with Gollum, you did see what he did as Caesar in the Planet of the Apes. Um and I forgot what other which other one he did, but his like you said, his motion in this film like brought out the character of Gollum. And you even that dialogue between Smeagol and Gollum, like the edit and bouncing back and forth from side to side because Gollum is sitting in one spot and it's just camera on left, camera on right, and they keep bouncing and cutting between the two angles to get that like bipolar type of a feel that draws you in. You actually feel like you're listening to two different characters talk. That is my favorite scene of this entire film. that because that was so dynamic and the way they did that. But I think Andy he's just he's second to none to me when it comes to motion caption, and I love his work with Gollum. That was phenomenal. That was phenomenal, and I want to. I would love to see. I don't know if they're ever going to do it, but I would love to see the transformation from Smeagol to Gollum. Like if we did a backstory on Smeagol and how he became to want this ring so bad. I would love to see that movie. That story would be very interesting.
Don't give them ideas. Don't give them
Right?
ideas.
I know.
He'll do it.
Because they will do it. And actually, it's
Yeah.
I guess I have a fun fact of my own. Warner Brothers,
Okay.
before the whole writer strike situation, either announced or unofficially announced that they are considering doing Lord of the Rings spin-off films. So,
Okay.
maybe a Gollum one is on the table. I hope not. Because I really hate Warner Brothers with a passion. Just in terms of everything that they do. But
Ouch.
let's just hope that they don't make anything that affects the legacy of these films.
That'd be
But
interesting though.
For sure. Definitely.
That would be
like,
very interesting.
like a Gollum origin.
Yeah, because like think about it. Like they're talking to Smeagol. Like Frodo was talking to him and asking him who he was and all that stuff. And it wasn't until that scene that I really started to look at Gollum and I was like, hold up, he was actually a hobbit. So I would love to see what took place to where he became this monster. And like how he's able to climb, like he's climbing down like cliffs like it's nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't see anybody else doing that, at least no other hobbits. So it'd be nice to see what transpired to make him into Gollum.
Yeah. I have to disagree, and I think the reason being is I'm not doing this to disagree. I saw Chris laughing. You realize,
It's not good.
but the reason why is because I think like Gollum's history is so insignificant. I think his main purpose is that's not necessarily his purpose, but I think like telling his origin story was sort of demystify sort of the mystery surrounding his character, or sort of how he came to become this creature. And I think he's really there to represent what becomes of you if you allow the ring to control you, you know? And I just think that having a spin-off film or TV series explaining all of that is just unnecessary, because inherently he's just having a Batwars character arc that Frodo has, if you think about it. And so there's nothing really that they can do that could, in my opinion, live up to what's being done here. I just think Gollum as a character works well as someone who, as like a suspenseful one, and really somebody who, at the end of the day, just represents the, again, like the worst possible version of yourself, and how you become this very detestable and very desperate creature, and ultimately that his history just no longer matters. I think that's sort of the point. I think telling that history goes against the very message that, at least in my opinion, the film is trying to come across. So that just,
I fuck with you, Matt, but that's cap. I mean, just think about this. Just think about this, right? Just think about this. The fact of Smeagol and Gollum coming together, that within itself, like how they became one, right? That's interesting enough, in my opinion, to make the story centered around, right? Let alone when you consider, I think a big part of it, in my opinion, is the fact that the trilogy is already over. Is why I think it merits it even more, right? We're not waiting on this sort of storyline to play out. Like it already is what it is. So having that backstory, in my opinion, it would only add, right? It couldn't hurt. And the journey you could go across, I think just getting to learn more about sort of the orcs versus the hobbits and how these different
Yeah.
things came about. I think the lore of it, there's just enough on the bone to chew, so to speak, that
Yeah.
I think they'll be able to make something pretty cool out of it. But that's my piece.
That's
Yeah.
very interesting because I was thinking about that too when it came to the elves, or it's the orcs rather. Um, Again, like I said in the last episode, I haven't watched Rings of Power, so I don't know if this is addressed in that show. But I would not mind seeing how the orcs became. You know, they were elves before, so like how they became orcs. You know, I think certain origin stories don't need to be told. Like Joker, for example. I don't really think we need to see Joker's origin story. You know, like I think he's a complete character and very well there's a lot of depth to his character that we don't necessarily need an origin story. Would be cool, you know, of course with what's his name? Joaquin Phoenix's film. You know, we got to see what is a possible origin story. But some characters I feel like they don't need it. I would love to see a deep dive on Smeagol Gollum. Like you said, Chris. I would love to see how that dynamic came into play. Was he bipolar prior to, you know? Because it's very possible that a wizard could have put a spell on him and you know, caused him to be divided in some way to where now, you know, he's got these multiple personalities. Um, that's possible. The development of the orcs, how they uh fell from grace, so to speak, to become what they are, look nothing like elves. You know, like this whole thing that they're able to even grow out these I don't know what the other orcs, the bigger orcs are called, but they're able to grow these guys. You know what I'm saying? Like they're able to grow them, and so like what is that magic? What are we doing here? You know what I'm saying? Like I would love to see how that came into play. So I don't know, certain origin stories for me, I wouldn't mind seeing. And that's just across the board when it comes to films. I think certain origin stories make sense to me. And those are the two that I would like to see: the Gollum, Smeagol, and then the orcs.
So before we move on from the Gollum love, there was one other note that I wanted to drop. That scene, which I respect your favorite scene being that moment where Gollum was tweaking out by himself. But my favorite Gollum scene from the second film was after he brought them the rabbits, and everyone's kind of like, "Oh, damn, Gollum! Like, this is too much, bro. Like, we can't
Yeah.
we can't get down like you when it comes to this." And then
Yeah.
he actually ends up cooking like a stew with the rabbit, and then you see Smeagol just absolutely disgusted, like he like spit at it. There was no CGI there. That was all actually Andy spitting, Andy Circus
Yeah.
spitting, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I love that moment. Literally, he's like, "There's not much meat on the bones in the first place," and he's like, "Yeah, but you ruined it,
Pause.
basically."
Yeah.
Nah, bro, nah, you can't do me like that, bro. You can't. I mean, that is the second time, right? I made a similar
Yeah.
reference, but meat on the
Yeah.
bone, bro, that's not. I don't know. That's we're gonna have to go to the official review for that one because I don't know. Nowhere near as bad
Yeah.
as Dick from Kansas, but that's a
Yeah.
conversation to be had another day, you know.
The coach's challenge.
Literally, we need to have an official review on this flagrant, on whether or not it was a flagrant one or just a common foul. But anyway, I think another origin story that I would like to see observed is of the Ents. Did anyone else enjoy that side story as much as me? Of the other hobbits, I'm sorry, I don't recall your names, but
Pecking
trying
order.
to convince the Ents to join the fight as well. and then eventually what ends up sort of causing them to finally join was seeing the sort of devastation of that area, the forest, um, and that sort of character development. I think learning more about what an ent is versus what a tree is and all that good stuff, I think that'll be really cool too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good
that
question.
has to be. Sorry.
Oh no, you go ahead, Derek. You're good.
Oh, no, I was just saying that would definitely need to be coupled with something for sure. Maybe like the elves,
Mm-hmm.
and orcs. Uh, I don't know. I didn't find the ents too compelling, man.
How dare
I
you?
was like they were cool. They were cool for what they were. Um, I don't know that I need. I don't need this in order to
I'm
start a game.
biased. One of my favorite
I'm
games has
sorry.
ents involved, so I always fuck with the
Oh,
ents, you know. But
okay,
I
okay,
I, I can understand. I actually liked just the way they were so whimsical, I guess is the word, right? Like,
yeah,
what did he
yeah,
say?
yeah,
The ends take a long time to speak to one another, and sometimes like you have to decide whether or not it's worth even saying. Like before we even talk about it. I found that line amazing because I'm like, yo, I wish I could
yeah,
tell this advice to a lot of different people in my life.
yeah,
But whether or not they'll take it is on them. So I fuck with the ends. I liked that initially they had him on the ropes, wasn't willing to help, and then
yeah,
only when they saw the way it was a sort of affecting their people, then they were willing to join in. Um,
yeah.
but I just side note on the trilogy, right? I enjoy the
Mm,
fact that obviously we have the same common goal, and it sucks that we don't get the answers, right? Usually in other trilogies, we're not as on a cliffhanger, in my opinion, as we are in this trilogy, right? Where we know
yeah,
what our goal is from the beginning, but getting there takes us three fucking movies. So um I like the pacing of it as a whole. I think especially this one was better than the first one, as mentioned before. But I'm interested to see how that continues to track in the third movie, right? This is the payoff.
yeah,
This is what we've been waiting for. Whether
yeah.
or not it's fully worth it or if it fully hits home is to be determined. But we got to talk about the best part of the damn movie, in my opinion.
Wait,
The Battle of the Helm. Okay, go ahead. Sorry,
no,
bro.
sorry, I didn't get to talk about the trees. Um, no, what I wanted to say was like after reflecting on it for the past couple of days, I was definitely with Derek because I do think that it is the weakest arc, but also the most beautiful one because I think sort of taking trees of all things and making them these very wise and almost endearing characters was super interesting. I think Treebeard was like hilarious and sort of the way I think back of the scene where like he's basically telling a story to like Pippin the Mirror and Anna falling asleep on his shoulder and then obviously puts them to sleep. So I think just the whole idea of the forest and all these ants and all these trees, you know, being able to communicate with one another, I thought was very interesting. Something I definitely would have never thought of, and to sort of see him, you know, participate in this huge attack on Solomon's Tower, you know, was damn cool. I will say, just to sort of see all the power and might that they carry, and I imagine that this is not the last we'll see of them. So, anyways, I just want to get that out there before we talk about the last part here.
I love that we just got some good giants on our side, right? There's enough evil giants in the series. It's only right we got some good guys on the team now.
Yeah. What was the name of the I'm sorry. What was the name of that black cloak character? The like the siren or something like that. The one
The
that
ring
was
race.
flying. Yeah, them. Again, did you feel like they were weak in this film too? Like
Yep.
we talked about how they were weak in the first one. I felt like they were weak in one. Is they said that Gollum said they can't be killed, but we're only seeing one in this film. So I'm wondering one, is that the chief one, and two, how did he get a dragon?
Yeah.
Like, why is Gandalf still on a horse? I'm still not understanding that. Like, why is he on a horse and not a dragon or something like that? Like, why are we not flying over like we said in the first movie? I mean, the last episode, how is he not flying over Mordor? And
Kobe, just throwing it in there.
yeah.
Well, I think I feel the cheapest explanation would be that he simply doesn't have the same powers as before because he obviously transitioned from being Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White. Um, at the same time, the only key difference that we're given is that he represents what Solomon or it's like Solomon is supposed to be. Um, you know, and speaking of Gandalf, actually, I really love the scene of him sort of removing the trance on the king from the King of Gondor.
That was
Really,
fire.
really not oh my goodness, well directed. And I think even the CGI they used in the scene to sort of remove like the cloudiness in his eyes, um, was very impressive. You know, I mean, this like I said, this movie came out I think in 2002, if I'm not mistaken, and so much of it looks deeply impressive. You know, so figured I'd get that out there. I didn't want us to, yeah, I know. I just didn't want to forget that before we move on to the last arc here.
All great shouts. I've got so many like cool individual moments that I want to key on as far as this entire battle, but did this first battle live up to the hype for you guys? Like how do you feel about the execution and the way everything played out?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, I think it was really well done. I like how the battle actually began. Because you had the one archer that had his, he's pointing his bow and arrow, uh and he just got nervous and released the arrow, and it was like almost like he wasn't even trying to, but the arrow caught that one orc in the neck that killed him. Like, and that's how the battle began. It was no, you know, I don't really think there's another way to like kindly like say like on your mark you say go type of thing, right? It's like we just gotta go for it. And I actually I enjoyed that part of it for sure, like how it began, because it's like, all right. And the king was even like saying like, and so it begins. And what he was annoying as hell.
Yeah, I hate him, bro. He's so
He's
irky.
annoying as hell. How are
Legolas
you the king and not
No,
battling?
Legolas is cool. Legolas is
or
cool. It's the other
Yeah,
dude. What's his
yeah.
name? King of
The king.
Gandor.
Yeah.
King
What's
Dale
his name?
the oh my goodness.
Oh,
No, not Dieldred. Dealden. King Dealden. Because his
yes.
Theoden,
son
yeah, with a
was
T. Yeah,
Dio,
yeah.
yeah, his son was Dieldred. He was the one who died during battle. There you go.
Yeah, he was annoying because there's no way
Gotcha.
that you can as a king all you're doing is just standing there shouting orders. Like you gotta get your hands dirty, bro. You're supposed to be
For
out
real.
there battling with these guys, and he's just standing back. And then all of a sudden, as things start to break down, it's like, oh yeah, let me go do it. I no respect.
Well, and I
No
I
respect.
100% agree. I think what you said there is alluding to something that I think is gonna happen in the next movie because if you guys remember, who's the rightful heir to Gondor?
Oh
Fill us in.
yeah,
I'm unaware.
It's Aragorn.
yeah,
Remember from the first movie. So
yeah.
I think Derek,
Okay.
you hit the nail right in the head. I think his soldiers, all of his followers are going to want to change in kingship, I imagine. So I think I'm looking forward to that scene very
Buddy
much
was
so.
weak. Buddy was weak, bro. That battle was high octane though. It reminded me of a lot of the battle sequences in Game of Thrones, like this
Yep.
one
Battle of
battle. And
Backwater. Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Now this one was really good. I enjoyed this battle more than the other battles that we've seen all, up to this point with this film, because there was so many things going on. Like you had Legolas and what's the dwarf's name again?
Grimly.
I'm not. Yeah,
Grimly, yeah.
they're
The goat.
counting their kills, right?
Yep.
it's almost like they were playing Halo or something. They're counting their kills and going for it. And I could appreciate it. It's also weird though because it almost seems like you're a little distracted in battle, which is wildly. I was kind of like, come on.
especially
But
when
I could
especially
appreciate
when
it.
Gimli was getting cooked. You could
He
tell it
was.
mattered to him
He
so
was.
much. He's like, nah, I gotta catch up.
Yeah.
I love their dynamic though.
Yeah, I think really that core, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are just you could tell they had like the actors of like great chemistry and it shines through on the screen. And speaking of that sequence, the one part that did bother me was when Aragorn and Gimli sort of go around the side exit of the castle of it's Helm's Deep they're at, right? Helm's
Yep.
Deep. Helm's Deep. And like they're literally on the bridge or whatever. Like Aragorn tosses him, and obviously stopping the orc from like breaking through. But did you notice like they were just going at it one at a time instead of just charging? And the thing that bothered me more, kind of, and even though it was good because it was consistent, is that when he did a sort of a pull away shot of like just to see like the huge scope of the battle, all the orcs coming in from these different directions, you can see them like in the corner on that bridge fighting, and they're still going at them one on one, like one at a time. I'm like, that is so inefficient.
And
Like,
it goes against their strategy too. Like early on, when they couldn't get sort of full access to the castle, they were just throwing fucking orcs up there, just yeeting them up there. And then I love the reaction too, where you see them like, like, oh shit, like as they're landing, and then as soon as they land, it's just smoke. Like as soon as they land, they're just trying to
like,
catch
oh
bodies.
shoot, yeah.
Yeah, hilarious.
But the best part arguably was, and I think we haven't really touched upon this, is the music of this trilogy, at least thus far. Phenomenal.
Soundtrack
I think it really brings like an epicness and a cinematic quality. You know, and I think that it really elevates a majority of the scenes. And I think this is proven when obviously Gandalf locates Carl Urban's character Eomer or something like that, the guy who was banished from Gondor. And obviously like they're charging down the hill, and the orcs are coming at them, and you hear that music blasting in the background.
Yeah,
fucking amazing. That was so awesome. You know, so
that was
I
another
had
one of
to
those
see it.
scenes that was kind of like, this is.
Oh, here we go. Here
Hey,
we go.
I'm sorry, man. That hill was way too steep to be charging down like that.
Oh my god, bro! It's a fantasy movie. I'm sorry, I'm pulling it up. I got.
know.
Come on, man.
Trust me, I know. I'm annoying myself watching it, but it's like that was what I was thinking. I was like, this Gandalf is way too old to be in the front. By the way,
Yeah, that's a fact. That's a fact.
But
well, the strategy. He blinded all the orcs, and then
it was amazing. I agree, it was amazing, but none of them
had
got
him
stabbed.
raising an eyebrow.
None of those horses got stabbed. At least, you know what I'm saying? Like when they were charging toward the orcs, none of them. Even if they're blinded, someone should have gotten stabbed. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not gonna be that perfect.
I'm sure
I don't know,
It's too
man.
clean for you.
It's way too clean.
I think it speaks to the power, though.
Well, and I also think there's limitations in the rating too. You know, I think they can only show so many depictions of violence. You know, and I think honestly, Derrick, that's a fair point to bring up, right? If this was an R-rated film, I think, you know, I'm talking, you know, Game of Thrones level, but I think it's comparable, right, in terms of what they're doing. You know, I think it make, you know, some scenes hit home even more, you know, but I think, you know, being able to show the aftermath of like carcasses and corpses and stuff like that, you know, I applaud them for trying, you know, given the constraints they had.
Also, this is 2002. So like I'm criticizing it, but in 2002 we weren't seeing a lot of gore like this. You know, I think that was still kind of brand new to what we're used to now. So I mean, I give it a break. I give it a break. It is a fantasy film as well. So, but it's just those little things, those little details that I was just paying attention to that it didn't feel like it was grounding it. Like I would have liked to see the hill be a little less steep, because especially when they were charging down, it was almost like they were on a roller coaster. You know what I'm saying? Like no horse lost its balance, no horse lost its footing. You know what I'm saying? Like that's weird, bro. That's weird. That's not real. But again, we're talking about a film that has a ring that speaks to people. So I get where I'm it's a losing battle. I get it. But
Yeah.
you know,
As
I
long
guess
as you know.
yeah, and also
yeah,
two things though. I yeah, two things I did want to bring up was for I actually have a fun fact, Chris.
Okay.
I don't want to steal your thunder at all, but during the scene where you remember, or I'm say Carl Urban tells the Aragon and the others to find the hobbits. You obviously Aragorn kicked that helmet. Fun fact: Vito Mortensen actually broke his big toe doing that. Fun fact: I think he either
You
broke it or
see,
dislocated it.
this is why you gotta show me my respect, okay? Because it wasn't only his big toe; he broke 2 toes when that happened.
Either toes. There you
And
go.
the actual take is in the film is the
Yep.
actual take where he broke his toes. And
wow.
funny enough, him screaming like that, the reaction to him thinking that the hobbits were dead, right? That was him actually screaming out of pain, like because of how he felt, and it was
Oh
used
wow.
for in that context. So, yeah, he
Oh,
went through
that's
hell for
good.
for the sake of the film, and he even mentioned too that the only reason he even let anyone know was because he had to obviously get medical attention for it. But he was saying that the people on the stunt crew, because he wasn't a part of the stunt crew, the people on the stunt crew was getting cooked like that on the regular. He was saying like that was normal for them. So he even felt bad, sort of getting glory for it. But yeah, that was all captured in the actual final battle.
Yeah.
Him actually breaking 2 of his toes. And I got a
Yeah.
couple little notes like that for this battle sequences as well. So um, in total, right, we've got multiple months. I think it was 5 months of shooting, as well as 20 hours of actual footage from this actual battle that they had to cut down, obviously.
Ooh.
Um, the filming of these Helm's Deep sequences was so grueling and went on for so long that at the end they gave all the actors sort of free t-shirts to commemorate the experience of people obviously that lived out there in New Zealand. So on the front of the shirt it said "I survived Helm's Deep," but the letter M in Helms was like struck out, so like it made it seem like hell, like Hell's Deep. Um, apparently it was like super hot and all that nasty gritty stuff there while they were shooting. Another part that I really loved, that I thought was one of the best scenes of that battle, um, was the one-eyed warrior, right? So he turns to the camera, and then you see his just
Oh
mangled eye
yes.
socket.
Yeah.
Funny enough, the
Wild.
performer who played him showed up as an extra and was just wearing an eye patch. And Sir Peter Jackson was like, hold on, let me see this. Let me see what you got going on." And initially he was like not for it, but after some time they did some work on it obviously, and then he was like, let's do it. And he actually admitted that after that it sort of helped him be more comfortable with his condition in general. So a
Oh,
nice little wholesome moment to come out of that as well. And I thought
So
that was just an awesome moment too. Like when it happened, I was like, "Oh shit, he not new to this, he true to this."
yeah.
Because yeah, his eye was mangled literally.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then what else do I got on this? Oh yes, so the total body count in the entire trilogy up to this point is 468. So I thought that was a funny
Ooh.
thing to add in there.
That's
Um,
counting orcs.
yep, counting everyone.
Wow. Wow.
And so this is a funny little blunder. I don't know if you guys noticed this. I actually noticed it and it bothered me while I was watching it. Um, in the scenes at Helm's Deep, Legolas's eyes are brown, even though throughout the series his eyes are blue. The reason being is apparently Orlando Bloom left his blue contacts for a couple of days, and they were just like, "Hey, we got to keep shooting." So
I
that was
knew something
funny,
looked
something
different
that I
about him.
noticed.
I didn't pick up on
yeah.
that. I knew something looked different about him though. That's
I
interesting.
I thought I was tripping, and then when I saw it, I was like,
Yeah.
I'm gratified. You see, I know I have a good eye for a reason, right? For these kind of things.
Yeah. Oh, that's dope. That's dope.
Yeah. And then
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, one last side note. Apparently, our director Peter Jackson was actually seen in one of the scenes wearing chainmail at Helm's Deep, and he actually throws a spear at one of the attacking orcs coming into the castle. So I thought that was another funny
Oh,
aside.
that was him.
Yep.
Wow. I didn't even pick up. Okay. Dope. Dope. I think one of the things I really enjoyed was that one orc that lit the fuse. You know, they were trying to stop him and they just like Legolas. It's Legolas, right? Does he pronounce it? He shot like I think like 2 or 3 arrows and he got hit, but then he just dove. He dove and went in there to light the fuse. That one I enjoyed that part of the battle too because it's like both sides lost a lot of members in that one attack, and you could still see just how determined they were to come into that castle. Like it did not matter what was about to happen; they were determined to get in there. But it weirds me out too that you have this wall that's supposed to be this impenetrable uh, um, thing, and the weakest spot is right there in the center. You know what I'm saying? Like that's wild. That's that's poor construction.
The one
That's
spot
poor
that will be
construction.
hit first, literally.
Yeah. I like put that on the side or something, or hide it if you have to have it there, right? But nah,
Of
I thought
course.
I know. I'm sorry.
We have become what we once hated. No, but it's fair.
Yeah. I mean, but I love that part of this of the battle too. I mean, there was just a lot of there was a lot of carnage after that explosion, right? So I don't know, man. I thought they did a phenomenal job with that battle. I loved it.
Yeah, the archers were my favorite thing. Like their accuracy, just putting
Yeah.
in mad work, bro.
They
Putting
didn't even
in.
need to look, bro. Like there was people that were like almost on the ground shooting arrows, and they were killing the work. So you
Yeah.
love it. You love to see
Um,
it.
and I think this the last thing I wanted to bring up too was well, I am so bad at freaking pronouncing names. This is easier to say the actors. When Sean Bean's brother in the movie, obviously came up, I thought he was a very interesting character. I think this is the case, at least according to what I'm seeing here on by browser. I think Chris, because Derek, did you watch the extended edition?
No, I didn't.
After the first one, I said, "No, I can't."
Okay.
Not gonna
Did
be
you
able to
guys
do it.
see a Boromir flashback?
No. Did you
No.
see it?
That was in the extended, yeah, that was in the extended
Okay.
edition. So just to give context, basically the scene was continuity wise before the meeting in Fellowship of the Ring. Basically, like his father, who's like the king of like the very place that his brother was in, basically tells him, hey, like the apparently the One Ring has been discovered, yada yada. And then basically you also see in the scene before that, like Boromir is basically like cheering on everyone, and he goes back into the ground and says, "Hey, ale for everybody!" Basically like led to like this victory or whatever. And then comparatively, Faramir is somebody that is just not very is not recognized, is not praised very well. Basically, father views him as a huge disappointment. And so, he recently says, I can go get the One Ring or whatever, and then the king says, "No, I'm like let your brother do it because he won't fail me," and everything. So basically, I wasn't sure what your thoughts were on the character because having that flashback sort of helps because you kind of see how Faramir is very just like jealous ridden person, and sort of like the very person he looked up to, his own brother, ends up dying and is simply floating down the river in a boat. So you can't help but sort of feel a great deal of sympathy for him after all he's been through, like losing someone who's really close to him and then simply not being treated very well by his father. So, I definitely can, sort of relate to the idea, and in some respects in terms of at times not being recognized for your worth, and sometimes having to go out and do it yourself, because people ain't gonna do that for you. You gotta go out and do your own shit. So that's basically what Faramir was trying to do. But anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying that Faramir was a good character. I just wasn't sure if you guys also saw the flashback in the movie, so I was curious where your thoughts were on his character.
Yeah, I definitely read
Perfect.
about that too, and I was like, I hate that I didn't get to see it, but yeah, asking for too much with these extended editions, so I not gonna be able to do it. But I'm glad that you gave that context because yeah, it is a really cool moment, and I think that's something that I honestly feel at times I wasn't able to appreciate enough. Like I feel like they really do wrap a lot of like loose ends with a lot of these different dialogue scenes, and a couple times, especially like around the sort of exposition right before the battle. Like they was a lot of different anecdotes that they sort of put through in the scene with Aragon's wife, right? And all of that stuff as he was being tempted by this woman on the battlefield. Like there's so many different moments of context that like if you're deep into the story, like that is so much more meaningful to you than it would be to someone like me just watching it for the first time. So I think the depth to the series really speaks to that because like you said these offshoot characters they still have these potential to have such big meaningful moments and unfortunately it didn't get put into the actual film but maybe one day I'll like check out the extended editions back to back but that's a commitment, that's a commitment right there.
Yeah, listen, I don't blame you guys. The movie's already long enough. I think tagging another hour is it's too much. Y'all got some lives to live. So I
I've never
understand.
even watched a 4 hour movie, like I've never done it, so who
Justice League.
knows, it should be fun. No,
You
no,
really
no.
I
that one?
forgot about that.
That one I sat through, bro. I was glued.
That went by fast too.
It did. It did. Oh, you never watched the Jackson 5 BET film?
Definitely not. I love how you said that like that was common, like they played that shit during the quarantine on national TV or some shit.
I'm
Like,
pretty sure they did
I,
on
like,
BET.
I'm a disgrace for not watching that.
Nah, I think that film is somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 6 hours.
God,
Yeah,
yeah, nah, not gonna do it.
Damn.
yeah. I mean they had that on ABC when I was a kid and used to I watched a little bit of it, but
You
I
got
watched that
intermission?
whole thing.
They said it was the Jackson
I
Five. Y'all
don't
gonna get five
think so.
hours, fam.
We're gonna
Yeah,
have a 30-minute commercial break. I need my bathroom.
yeah, I think they do have the commercial breaks in there, but it's just regular commercial breaks, no intermission type thing.
Damn.
Yeah, yeah. If you especially if you watch it live, you gotta watch it. Like I
No,
don't know.
thank you,
I
sir.
think there's certain films I can do that with. It was just I wanted to watch the extended edition for this, but after the first one, I was like, hell no. But
Yeah.
now after the second one, it's very possible I watch the extended edition of the third one.
Yeah. And I think it also sort of I think it'll help to alleviate your pain by saying that um that there's like 30 minutes of credits. So the runtime's kind of tacked on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel
But
yeah.
that.
No, I feel that.
in any event, let's go straight into our star ratings though. I think it's only fair to wrap this thing up. So which one do you guys want to go first?
I'll hop on
Chris?
the wagon first because I alluded to it first, right? I'm the first one early on in the episode to mention it. Um, I think we went. Oh, I went three last time, right? Or was it? Yeah, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly, I'm gonna go four for this one. I really enjoyed this film. I think um, it hasn't given me like the ultimate man that was really worth 3 hours payoff just yet. I'm really hoping for that in the third movie. I honestly I'm not really a fan of watching series of movies like this where you feel like it's kind of a TV show. Like that's how like because that's how it's going. Like
Yeah.
I like my films wrapped up nicely. But I think this is really deserving. I really love, like I said, all the different moments of character development. There's so much to chew on really as a fan. So it makes sense why the fan base is where it is for these films. And
Mhm.
just the execution across the board and all these different like anecdotes that we were able to bring up. I can only imagine how many other stories in general there are just because it's a clear huge undertaking to shoot these films with the way everything is so extravagantly laid out. So I'm a
Yeah.
big fan. I'm gonna go 4 stars. 4 out of 5 ain't that bad.
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna do 4.5. I thought that this was it was significantly better than that first one. I felt like I was suffering through the first one. Um, but this one was like you said, Chris, picked up right where we left off, and it did a masterful job with that. So I don't know, man. I think this is a great film. I'm gonna have to make my sequels list though, because this is yeah,
That
I
was
never even thought
blasphemy.
about that until you said that.
Alrighty. I think I'm also at a 4.5. 4.5 out of 5 stars. I was teetering to a 5. I think if I were to rewatch it again, which would probably be in like 15 years, um, I'd probably give it a 5. But I think there were just a few little elements here and there that kind of bothered me. So, some of the realistic elements get lost a bit. But yeah, I think everything's impressive from a filmmaking standpoint, performance standpoint. I can rattle on and on. But I think we've done enough praise, and I'm very much looking forward to you know doing Return of the King next episode.
Heck yeah, looking forward to that. Wrapping our nice trilogy with a bow. But this was another awesome episode, you guys. Thank you so much. Looking forward to hearing what you guys all think of it. And obviously, looking forward to getting into our third edition. So do not forget, right? If you're still here, make sure that you're subscribed to us on all platforms. OTS Media Co. and OTS Media on YouTube, so that you get all this lovely content brought straight to you. If you stuck with us this long, it's worth. So please make sure that you give us the follows there, and really looking forward, like I said, to getting some feedback so we could incorporate it into these episodes moving forward. But let's go upwards and onwards. Looking forward to episode 3. We'll see you guys then. Have a good one. Peace.
Peace, everybody.